super narrow right here.
Whoa, got a little squirrely there. All right, turn. They're not gonna have to deal with pedestrians.
No.
How cool is this? It'll be distracting for the drivers.
I wonder if they're gonna have that face on while you're passing by.
Good morning, YouTube.
Hello, I am April Rose, and with me is a man who thinks a lap of luxury is an '05 Escalade.
Oh yes, it's a lovely, lovely machine.
Tyler Hoover. Now, we were just in Las Vegas.
Yes, April got a job. They hired her at the F1 Concours at the Wynn. It was awesome.
Yeah.
They didn't want me, they wanted her, so I got to be the arm candy for it and just show up and have fun. But it also brought us to Vegas right before the F1 race. We actually got to drive around the track. It was almost complete, just a few days before the race, in a rental Mustang, which is absolutely perfect for it. But we saw the sights in Las Vegas, and April, well, she worked. I got to play.
Yeah, I hosted that F1 concourse. And then you were my arm candy, but we got to see the sights. And we did the Sphere show. Is that how you say it?
Yes, and that's actually my top story is the Sphere. It's been going around the internet that they lost $100 million in their first quarter of operation, which was very misleading because in that quarter, they had one day that they were open. One concert with U2 and Bono and a few days with the Nature Show, which actually in Las Vegas, we took in the show, the Nature Show.
Right, it was called Postcards from Earth, which is really cool. The seating is amazing. You almost feel like you're going to fall over the person in front of you because you can barely see them, but it's really, really steep incline. I like how they built that.
$170 for a ticket
That's a lot.
a 1-hour show, which sounds insane, but it was actually pretty darn cool. They're not going to be losing money at those ticket prices, and the theater was pretty full. I think Bono and U2 is commanding like $600-800, and then the outside is a giant billboard in itself. It's completely transformed the Las Vegas skyline, but also you can advertise on it, which I looked it up, and it's $600 and something thousand for 3 days and $450,000 for 1 day advertising on it. So yes, they lost $100 million on their first quarter, but that's because they were open for 1 day.
Right.
They're going to make tons of money on this.
How can you spend $650,000 for 1 day? I get a Super Bowl
Well, that's
ad.
3 days, but that's still not very much.
for
450
3
is
days.
1 day.
Yeah, is that worth it? Like, do that many people see this billboard?
It's the coolest billboard ever.
Okay.
And I guess it gets a lot of social media impressions because people are taking pictures of it.
Right.
And then you see it. I mean, you can see this thing from space.
Right.
It's
Can you?
ridiculously large. Yes. Yes. They turned it on and you could see it from space.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, well, that's worth it then for all the aliens spying on Earth.
But one thing that may not make any money, the F1 race itself.
You're kidding.
So let's talk about the economics of it.
Okay.
They actually had to buy a piece of land on the Las Vegas Strip for over $200 million to build the race paddock. It is permanent. That's how they have the pits and everything else. Every year when they have the race, they need to reopen this. I don't know what they'll do with it for the rest of the year, but it's right off the Strip. So that is a massive, massive cost, obviously, and they're going to try and make it up with hotels paying for the rights. You know, they were talking about blocking views of hotels that weren't paying, and hotels charging an unbelievable amount of money just to see the race. So I think the most expensive one was like the Caesars Palace Emperor's package. $5 million got you like a terrace room with a full view of the Strip, this big straightaway on the race. Crazy, crazy stuff like that. Like the base level tickets were $2,000 if you wanted to just barely get in, like get in just to see it.
Which is the most expensive F1 ticket ever.
Absolutely. I went to the Monaco Grand Prix and it was not that expensive, which Monaco, a very expensive place. And I remember the ticket, it was definitely less than $500. But it turns out they sort of priced themselves out of the market, and there's still a lot of tickets available, and they've been slashing prices. They have not been able to sell what they thought they were able to sell, so they're going to struggle and probably lose money with this first race.
Yeah, well, it is the most expensive race, and it's Las Vegas, it's not Monaco, so I get, you know, things should be cheaper in Las Vegas, but it's interesting because the last two races that were in the U.S. in Austin and Miami, those ticket prices were also some of the most expensive in the world, and you talking about Monaco, I'm thinking Monaco, somewhere in Italy, anywhere fancy across the world is going to be more expensive, but no, it's here in the good old USA. We're charging double pretty much.
Well, and then $300 for nachos, I think we saw as well. Yeah. Crazy prices just to be there. So obviously Las Vegas is struggling to sell tickets, but I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely incredible event. So April and I are certainly excited about the race. We've watched F1's Drive to Survive like many people that got into the sport, but we're not F1 experts at all.
No.
So we thought we should talk to an F1 expert, and we knew the perfect guy because we'd worked with him for years at the Barrett-Jackson Collector Car Auction. But in the past, he was the U.S. commentator for F1, and that's Rick DeBrule. But once again, we had issues with the internet, so we did it on the front yard.
Rick DeBrule, the utmost expert in all F1, actually all of racing. Like, you cover Indy, possibly NASCAR, IMSA, everything. I feel like I don't know anything when it comes to what you know.
You know, I often joke I'm a mile wide, but I'm an inch deep. You know, I know a little bit about a lot.
I've already learned something from you, Rick. I didn't know that F1 had been in Vegas before, so what was that like?
So yeah, that was back in the early 80s, 1981, 1982. Now officially it was called the Caesars Palace Grand Prix. It was really the Caesars Palace parking lot race. They actually put together a track out in the parking lot. And, you know, on paper I know it looked good, but in reality it was too tight, too twisty, very hard to pass. Ultimately the drivers were not big fans of it. They only ran it for 2 years, but ultimately they can at least say they had 2 races there. I was fortunate I got to attend both of them. I enjoyed them at the time. I was you know, just a pup enjoying my time going to Formula One races. Back in the days when you could actually finagle a press pass without having to jump through 47,000 hoops. I was working at local TV news in Phoenix at the time, and I thought, hey, I need to go up there.
Right now I feel like this current F1 race in Las Vegas, there's so much excitement around it. Was it the same thing back then? Because F1 wasn't huge in America.
No, no. You know, when I used to do the play-by-play for Formula One back when it was on Speed, and I also did it on ESPN for a time, and I used to joke, you know, it was like being the Super Bowl announcer in Europe. It's a big deal, just not here.
Right.
Well, now Formula One, thanks to Drive to Survive and some of the other things that's gone on, has become a big deal in the United States. And I got to tell you, you know, I mean, now there's, you know, the United States is going to have 3 Formula One races this year. No other country gets to have 3 Formula One races. We had Miami, we had Austin, now we're going to have Las Vegas. Italy got to have it back in during the pandemic. They got to have 3 races because of everything going on. Interestingly enough, back in the early 80s, the United States had 3 races as well, and Caesars Palace was one of them. But back to the point, Formula One is now a big thing in the United States. And as a result, the ticket prices, the crowds, everything in Las Vegas is going to be a big deal. And you talk to people on the Formula One circuit today, and they'll tell you around the world, everybody's been talking about coming to Las Vegas and what it's going to be like.
Well, and the track's going to be dramatically different. We're going to actually drive on the strip where the race is going to be before the race, which is so cool, I guess, just like in Monaco. But how do you expect that to go? I guess it's really anyone's guess, but you're kind of an expert.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long track. I think it's the 3rd longest track on the Formula One circuit this year, so that's interesting. It's going to be fairly quick. It's kind of a box kind of shape, and so they believe it's going to be pretty quick. There's one straightaway going down kind of the back straights, has a little bit of a kink in it. That's going to be really, really fast. Now, I will say Max Verstappen, who's the current world champion, now 3 times world champion, has already made comments that, you know, it's kind of a rinky-dink track. He's not really impressed with it. He's going to Las Vegas because it's part of it. As always, until you get there, you don't really know. Hopefully, it'll be a little more interesting than Max is saying. But and here's the other thing that's really significant. It's going to happen at night. I mean, the race is going to happen at 10 p.m. Las Vegas time. So it's at night, which is going to be interesting because it's going to be cooler. The tires are going to be a bigger issue. And most importantly, the strip is going to be lit up like you can't believe. So it's going to be really cool when they're going down the straightaway.
How fast do you think they're going to be able to get on that straightaway?
On that one straightaway, I'm thinking, let's see, 182. I think they'll be closed in on 200 miles per hour going down there.
That's I'm like envisioning cars.
I know people have tried it on the
into,
Las Vegas Strip before, but this is legitimate.
I'm like envisioning cars flying up into Treasure Island and the Bellagio fountain and just them trying to pass each other. Because are these narrow roads? Are they going to be a lot of passing?
Like in Monaco, I went to the Monaco race and there isn't a lot of passing on the city streets because it's so narrow. It's such a beautiful location. The experience is incredible. But if it were just the track by itself, it'd be really boring.
Yeah, and ultimately, to be honest with you, Monaco's become kind of just a parade, because it's very, very hard to pass. I think because of that long straightaway, there's two good potential passing places. I think it'll actually be much better for passing than in Monaco. But having said that, until we actually see it on the track, I don't know the actual width and all the measurements of the track. I've only seen the general layout.
So can I ask you, because a lot of people watching this aren't super huge race fans, what's the difference between IndyCar and F1? Because I feel like you're the man to ask.
So they're both called open wheel racing, right? Which means that simply the wheels are exposed when you see the car driving down, versus NASCAR where there's fenders, sports car where there's fenders. So they're both open wheel racing. IndyCar is very unique in that it's every car is actually the same chassis. They're made by Dallara. Everyone starts with the same basic chassis. Then there's two different engines, and then there's a lot of things that they can change and tweak as they go. Formula One, they're very distinct. Each team has to design and build its own chassis. Now, they can share engines. Ferrari will be in Ferrari. It'll be in another team. Haas, Mercedes will be in multiple engines and multiple cars. But ultimately, each one of the cars is very, very unique. Now, there's highs and lows to that. The advantage in IndyCar, because the cars, all the teams start with the same basic car, the gap between the front and the back is like this. I mean, it's such tight racing, and you never know who's going to be on the pole. You never know who's going to be in the top three. Whereas in Formula One, because money equals speed, and some teams have more money and more success, you can have one team that's way over here, and you can have another team that's way back here, because frankly they just didn't have enough money, didn't have enough technology, haven't figured something out. And so there are some things that are kind of spec, the front wing, the rear wing, tires, that kind of thing. But there are so many other variables that they get to come into. And the budget. I mean, you look at the budget in Formula One, I think the budget, the budget cap, they don't allow them to expend more than that now. It's like $135 million for a 20 or 21 race season. And they get extra money when they go beyond that, like they will this year. Whereas in IndyCar, you can run a competitive IndyCar for $5 to $10 million.
Now, what do you mean they get extra money when they go?
Only 5 to 10 million.
They get extra money when they go beyond that. What does that mean?
Well, it just means, in other words, there's a lot of extra cost associated with going from race to race. So the fact that there were 23 races this year instead of, I can't remember whether it's 20 or 21, I think they get an extra, so many millions of dollars because, you've got to travel to that race. You've got to travel team. You've got to travel supplies. So it just costs extra money to do that.
So Rick, why do you think there's been such a surge in popularity with Formula One versus, say, NASCAR sort of on the decline, and IndyCar, well, it's been declining for a long time?
I think once again, the TV show on Netflix, Drive to Survive, has had a huge part of that. It's taken the drivers and making it possible for people to understand who the drivers are, understand who their personalities are, give them people to root for. There was also, at one point in time, a few years ago, a great battle going on in the championship between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. That kind of created that internal drama. And unfortunately, for the last year, 2 years, it's just been all Max Verstappen runaway. This year, in particular, Max is I think he's won 16 races, very likely going to win more. And so it becomes, it's almost kind of boring. It's like, well, okay, Max is going to win, but who's going to finish second? Last week, there was a great battle for two drivers between third and fourth, and we were all excited, but it was really just for third and fourth. It wasn't for who was going to win the race. And it also, Formula One appeals to a younger demographic. NASCAR, the demographic on NASCAR is aged out. The demographic for IndyCar is kind of in the middle, but there's no question that the demographic, the people watching Formula One right now, is younger. I have a good friend who, I've known since high school, and, last year he said, oh, hey, I just want some advice from him. I'm going to go to the Austin race, the Formula One race in Austin. I'm like, you never cared anything about Formula One. Why are you going to Austin? Oh, I've been watching Drive to Survive, and it all looks so great. So never underestimate the power of television or YouTube.
Well, do you have any predictions?
Max Verstappen will win.
Okay.
After that, though, that's when it will get interesting. Although there was a race this year where Max wasn't able to run away with it at other tracks. But having said that, race after race, he seems to be able to win it. There's going to be some interesting aspects in the sense that, like I say, it'll be cooler, the tires will be more complicated. The question is going to be these days it's who's going to be second, who's going to be third. Are the Ferraris going to be able to pull it off? Charles Leclerc has had nothing but bad luck. He's in a Ferrari this year. He didn't even make it past the formation lap on the last race. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin has been really exciting to watch. He's a lot of fun. You know, it's just going to be interesting. But having said that, you know, if I was a betting man in Las Vegas, I'd be betting on Max Verstappen.
DeBrule, thank you so much for coming on our show. Of course, you are the utmost expert in everything racing, so we're going to definitely have you come back.
And we love working with you at Barrett-Jackson. It's been
absolutely.
A great 3
We look
years.
forward to seeing you in just a couple months out here in lovely Arizona for the Scottsdale event.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you there.
All right. Bye, Rick.
All right. Bye.
I absolutely love Rick DeBrule. He's really helped me like prep for all the car auctions because he knows so much about like pre-war, post-war, like all those old school muscle cars. Like that's his jam.
I want his brain because not only does he have all that knowledge, he is like the best broadcaster ever, thinking on his feet, being able to do this. He's done every different kind of medium when it comes to this, even YouTube now. But I forgot something, speaking of.
Yes?
Your story. We didn't do April's story, which I knew all of you were going to be really upset if we skipped over whatever weird thing you've come up with. So what is it, April?
Well, it's not really weird. Well, it is weird, but it's very fascinating because we're going out to drive the F1 track. And these are the weirdest F1 cars that ever drove on a race.
April's going to talk about race cars. Okay.
Well, they're the weird cars. I want to show you the Brabham B46B. Okay, so get this F1 car. They actually put a fan in the back of the car to suck it to the track, to keep the downforce down and glued to the track.
So they put like a dustbuster or a Hoover vacuum. They hoovered it to the ground.
They hoovered it to the ground. It only lasted a year, actually. So this was during the 70s.
Hoover, nobody does it like me.
Yes, you really do suck. In a good way.
Was it successful at all?
It was really successful. Niki Lauda won, but you can't have moving aero on the car.
Right.
That's an issue. They claim that it cooled the car, but it really is just moving aero.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps the car completely sucked to the ground where it could take a turn. That's actually brilliant, and of course got banned. Yeah, that's not
brilliant. Fair. They won the race, the first race, and it was banned because people complained. And so it got kicked out.
Makes sense.
Oh, this one is so cool. Okay. The T-Tray car, the March 711. Check this out. There's a tray on the front because they wanted to create downforce, and it's actually on 2 struts where you can adjust.
It's a table.
It's pretty, it's a table. You can adjust it to the different track conditions if you're, to whatever you need. It's really, really cool. It's interesting. But it actually made it really unstable at high speeds because it almost created lift in front of the car, which you don't want at all.
So is this in the 70s or 80s?
Yeah, so this was 1971. It was able to get 4 podiums and a pole position. But the problem was that it caused a lot of drag. It was unstable at high speeds, and it generated like this lift at high speeds instead of downforce, which was a problem because obviously it's going to be a little squirrely.
April talking about racing cars. Very fun. The thing I'm thinking of, it reminds me like the Lamborghini Countach, like the Cannonball Run one, had the front spoiler. It was like an accessory with Lamborghini. So a few cars had it. So I saw them on Lamborghinis. I didn't know that there was race cars with it.
They tried it.
It looks ridiculous.
They tried it. It was ridiculous, and it was fragile, and it broke a lot. So it went away very soon. Now, my favorite one, this is the 6-wheeled Wonder Tyrrell P34. It was 1976. Now, you see there's 4 tiny wheels up front. They wanted to create more contact with the road, and they thought, 6 tires is better than 4, so why not? And actually did pretty good. I was better around turns, and they thought the smaller wheels were going to reduce drag, increase airflow under the car, and help the corner ability, which it did.
Yeah, but it would seem like it would be maybe, I'm sure they figured out the alignment issue and all that stuff, having 4-wheel steering, because a lot of it with modern cars, we have 4-wheel steering, but it's the back wheels are sort of doing the opposite of the front to sort of give it that. With them being both on the front axle, it seems odd, but I guess it worked.
Yeah, they said
it's weird looking.
They said it gave it good traction on twisty tracks. It was nimble handling, which is an advantage. But ultimately, Goodyear, they actually had to make a different kind of rubber for this tire, so it was more of a headache. And the team thought eventually it was more trash than treasure, and they got rid of it. It got banned actually, later that year, and it became obsolete because of regulations. But I think it's a really cool design. I mean, like, why not try different things? Right?
I'm sorry, I'm just lost in your...
So which one of these cars do you think that you'd like to drive?
The one that sucks you to the ground would definitely keep you from crashing, most likely. I would probably like that one. Because the thing about Formula One cars is you have to drive them at such a high rate of speed that you would crash if you were going too slow and you were too scared, because you need that downforce.
And that's the tricky thing about this particular F1 race in Las Vegas. It's going to be really cold. It might be one of the coldest in history because they have the latest start time. We're in the desert, so the desert, it's really cold at night. And the tires are going to be super cold, so it's not going to have really good grip, and it's going to be a problem.
Well, since I'm such an amazing driver, and I had the best car ever in Las Vegas, a V6 Renault Mustang with 122,000 miles, I had no problem at all. I could give them some pointers, but yeah, take a look. We actually drove around the track. That was the transmission on this 120,000 mile rental Mustang jumping here as we go out onto Las Vegas Boulevard, which is the big straight. Although an F1 car will be going, well, close to 200 miles an hour here.
Look at all the scaffoldings out for the lighting, because the races starts at 10 o'clock at night, which is pretty late, but it's like better for the European market. But I guess, and the Vegas lights will be even prettier at night.
It looks like a racetrack, Las Vegas Boulevard. There's Treasure Island right there. That is awesome.
I feel like these chain link fences aren't strong enough to hold perhaps a flying tire or a flying car into it.
Well, I mean, Monaco, it's just like this. You feel like you're right on it. Oh, and they have some grandstands here too.
You are so close.
You're right on it. At the Mirage.
Wow.
So the volcano's going off as the cars are going by.
So the track is what, 3.8?
Yeah, almost 4 miles. Yeah, there's Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, so that's where they did the race, what, like 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
In the parking lot.
And
So
since it's all going to be at night, there's all the lighting up there. Very interesting.
it seems so narrow. Like this, only 2 cars you seem to go across.
Yeah,
I think they can do a lot of passing here.
it's a lot like Monaco. It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing they won't have to worry about with the Las Vegas Grand Prix is traffic. Well, normal traffic like this. There's a turn coming up somewhere.
Are you going to be able to handle it with this transmission?
It does it when it's cold. That's the thing. Sometimes in Turo you get something that's a little bit beat up, and this one, 121,000 miles, it finds a neutral randomly in between shifting sometimes. It's a bad one, but it's only $50 a day. Here's some more grandstands here,
That is great.
right by the Bellagio.
It is so close. You're like on top of the track over here.
Well, I would have thought that you could see the Bellagio fountains, but it completely blocks it all off. There it is right there. They have the car up.
Oh yeah, there's the F1 car.
So there's your only view of the Bellagio fountains.
And the F1 car blocking it.
Correct. All right, green light, Brittle Mustang, go!
It's super narrow right here.
Whoa, got a little squirrely there. All right, turn. They're not gonna have to deal with pedestrians.
No.
There's a minute of racing there.
It was cool.
Here we go again. Well, they have a great view. So then the final turn is coming up here. It'll be a left. Yeah, this has got to be it. This is the start-finish line. Look at what they built up over here. Whoa. And we're not going to be able to go to the start-finish line.
Yeah.
They are working on it right in there.
Does not look like Las Vegas over here anymore.
No.
Wow, they've completely built it up. It looks like a racetrack, for real.
Well, let's see where we can hop back on. Because in there is the start-finish line, I
Right.
think turns 1 through 4. And then there's the back straight, so hopefully we can hop back on there. All right, we're getting back on at Colville and Flamingo, and I guess there's a fuel stop they can make right there at the Shell if they want to. Whoever has that gas station hit the lottery for sure. But I believe the track is going to be on this side. So we're on the outside of the scaffolding, the barriers right now, but we'd be going against the traffic to be in there. Okay, looks like we're getting back out on the track now. There we go.
So it's 50 laps, and right now, halfway through the track, it's taken us about a half hour.
Right. They will have 10 laps done,
Exactly.
and the time it's taken us to do 1 in Las Vegas traffic with all this extra mess right now. In the morning. Like I said, at night, this would probably take us 2 hours right now with all the gridlock and everything.
Yeah, but it'd be so pretty at night.
It
get.
would take forever.
I get why they're doing it at night. It's totally different at nighttime.
Now we're going sort of against the grain right now, but this is the tricky bit around the new sphere that's losing $100 million right now. But how cool is this? It'll be distracting for the drivers.
I wonder if they're going to have that face on while you're passing by.
Yeah, I think that's where they get spit out there. There's a couple of turns. So it'll go back that way towards the Wynn Hotel where we pulled out, and that is the course.
That is 50 laps, 1 lap for us. That's really sad. I wish we could be here for the race.
I kind of do, but I kind of don't.
Yeah.
It's going to be totally crazy.
If we had an extra $1 million to spend on a hotel room and nachos, because nachos are like $500, the food is ridiculous, the hotel rooms are ridiculous, everything is way overpriced, but I get it, it's F1.
All right, well now it's time to return this rental Mustang and get on the airplane home. Hopefully this thing makes it. What a turd. Thank you so much for watching. Everything.
Which F1 do you think is, which F1 car do you think is the most outrageous one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just still flustered from you talking racing. Hi.
Hi.
Well,
I don't know what's happening.
I don't know either. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. I might just spit all over the table that you just cleaned.
Las Vegas disease.